Gianni smirked when I asked, do you guys set resolutions?
Yeah,
What do you do, Gianni? Or what's your thought?
I have a couple. Number one, I think sometimes this might be speaking from some of my own experience, right? So it's not across the board. I think setting a resolution for a whole year is a little unreasonable, depending on the person and depending on what the goal is, right? And I think sometimes, so I have goals every month. It's part of a formation process, right? But there are things I pray about, and sometimes they'll last more than 1 month, right? 2 months, 3 months. Sometimes something comes up and it's like, I don't need to focus on this for this month. It's actually going to be detrimental for me too. And obviously there's room in a year resolution, right? So the other thing is I like to draw a distinction with spiritual resolutions and non-spiritual resolutions.
That's a good point.
I think spiritual resolutions lend themselves better towards sticking to the liturgical calendar versus the contemporary calendar, right? So Advent starts, and if you think about it, like look at the genius of the church, we have a 4-week period of purification and penance. It's not well known, I think, but Advent is a period of purification and penance, and then boom, Christ is born in our hearts. And 4 weeks into the year, you have Christmas from December 25th to February 2nd. And I mean, that's 2 months of celebration and just gratitude and thanksgiving and prayer in our liturgies. And I mean, that sounds to me like a very, good way to start the year off. So I think with like spiritual resolutions, it makes more sense to, wouldn't you want to time yourself up with the liturgical calendar of this rebirth, this new birth? So
you're not opposed to resolution?
No, I'm not necessarily opposed.
More of doing it through the season. So Advent, Lent, doing it there for something, Easter season. So it leaves you more flexibility to be able to adapt and change it, not pigeonholing yourself for a whole year.
Yeah.
Not that resolutions are bad, but you're being intentional about the seasons and leaving yourself flexibility. It's not like all of a sudden, I'm not going to do this thing. You're going to end up replacing it with something else that may be better for your spiritual life.
Yeah.
Not that I'm just not going to do anything at all.
So I'll give a good example. Something that frequently is a part of my goals is going to the gym, right? And the reason I would not make this a whole year is when I'm at school, I have access to like a good gym, right? So when I'm at home, it's a different story. And it's kind of, I think, irresponsible for me to buy a gym membership for 1 month at this gym when I'm home in May, and then 2 months when I'm at my assignment somewhere else, and then another, time on breaks and stuff. So for me, I say, okay, what can I do? What can I do at that time? So some months it'll be, okay, I want to do weightlifting this month, focus on this.
You break it down.
Yeah, break it down. And I think like some people say, well, then just make your resolution physical activity. But I think in being goals, like we should be specific.
Yeah.
Especially because, I do some type of activity every day, but sometimes I find myself, I played basketball 3 times this week. I ran twice and I did a lot of cardio, and I'd like to, do more strength training or weight training. Right. And then, if that's something I really want to do and my resolution is I just need to be physically active, it kind of waters down the motivation to do that. So, I'm not against resolutions per se, but I think sometimes this idea is like overwhelming, intimidating.
Too vague. But I think you hit it with the SMART goals. It's more of a timed SMART goal. Yeah. That's a good way of looking at your life too. I mean, resolutions is kind of like a 30,000-foot view, maybe more of a general, like you saying, that's more specific, but then maybe narrow it into whether if you don't want to do it liturgical, or just do it monthly or weekly, whatever, setting some kind of goals, but incorporating some kind of system to make sure that the goals, what do they say? A goal without a plan is just a wish. So if you just make a bunch of goals and don't have a plan on how you're going to execute, it's just a wish. And that's why most people don't ever reach their goals or their resolutions, because they just wish and they never plan out or put forth the effort or the time to plan it out. Like for the year, if you want to get out and plan it out, whatever, if you have a business or your spouse or whatever, it seems redundant or a waste of time. But it's just like, if anything, the more you put the time in on the front end, the less time you spend on the back end. So for example, if my wife and I scheduling out our podcast or this show, whatever, if we just wing it and go by, whenever we have time, not a lot of quality gets put into that. But if we put forth the effort and the time and the planning, look, on every Friday, we're going to drop an episode here at Purposefully Catholic. We're going to commit to that. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
But if we just, hey, whenever you got time, I got time, you guys got time, we'll get to that, we'll do it. How often is that going to happen?
Yeah.
It's just really not going to. So it's okay to have, whether that's monthly, liturgically seasoned, or if it's daily or weekly, whatever it is, specify it and then write it down maybe. Hold some kind of a way to write it down, hold yourself accountable, but then some kind of plan to take it from this to where the goal is at. If there isn't a plan to get it done, are you really ever going to do it?
I used to laugh at the idea of setting resolutions because it just seemed like this secular practice that, I didn't see any value in. But thinking about it a little more, we're getting rid of so many traditions culturally. It's a detriment to us because as people in our DNA, we need ritual. Ritual is actually a very good thing for us. And the church, founded by Jesus and the wisdom that he's imparted to the church, is imbued with ritual, right? Everything we do is ritual. And so even if it's a secular ritual, I still think it's got it's got merit in it that someone set a resolution. So I would encourage people to do that and to stick to it, to be intentional, as you said, and to make them smart goals where they're actually measurable. They're not these vague things that I'm going to do. The thing that I'm thinking of as you guys are talking, when I was younger, it used to feel like when you go from one year to the next, there was this sense of optimism and hope. Oh, this year's coming to a close. You look back and then, next year's going to be so much better. I don't know about you guys, but ever since COVID, it's you're looking at next year, oh my God, how's this going to get any worse? That's just the feeling. I mean, so there's this juxtaposition. I'm just going to, let's leave this one side on the table for conversation because we're going to lead somewhere else. But is that the sense that you guys have?
That things are getting worse.
It just seems like in the world, the culture, politically, everything, it's oh my God, 2024 presidential election, all these wars, what's happening in the church, this declaration. It's everything's crumbling. Is there another pandemic coming? I mean,
to be determined.
Yeah.
But as Christians, we're called for a different kind of optimism. We're called to see the world through the lenses of Jesus. Is that we're not hoping. Hoping isn't a wish.
So you jumped to the second thing real quick.
It's not a wish.
It's okay.
It's not a wish. I truly believe that the world, I'm an optimistic person. Yeah. So I'm always going to think it's always going to get better. That's just how I am, because whatever you think, it is. It's true. Whatever you think it is, because you're living in your head. If you think it's going to be good, you're controlling how you process the situation. Like he said, you can find joy even in suffering. That's how you see the suffering. Is it because it's drawing you closer to God? Maybe it's getting away those things that are holding you back from God, or whatever. If it's something for the purpose, but that's hard. It's hard to see. Yeah. But we're called for hope, something different. We're called to be the hope, to be the light. That even if there is darkness in this year, where are we going to be to bring the light into that situation? It's hard.
Gianni, can you give us a working definition of hope as a virtue?
Oh, goodness.
I know I'm pointing
on
the spot, but
this probably could just be ripped apart. It's kind of on the spot. I'm going to say hope is confidence in that which is given to us by faith, I think is the way I'd want to word that. Okay. So a couple things that I'm trying to get at, maybe not clear in the wording. I think hope that isn't confident is a waste of time. So, and I think back to, the cross. What's the value of hope in the cross if the promise of Jesus isn't to be taken seriously, right? So I think sometimes we have this false hope in the church and even among Christians that, well, if I do these things, then maybe Jesus will save me. you know, if I meet all these checklists and I have a, you know, good life and a good heart and good intention, then there's a chance, like I hope. It's like, okay, but your hope should be, I think, a little stronger than just what sounds like giving it up to chance, right? There should be this confidence, like, no, I have done everything that's been asked of me faithfully, not at all times, but I am continually striving to reaffirm, you know, be faithful, and kind of accepting a certain confidence. Not, oh, I hope the Lord saves me, but I trust that He will. Right. So there's a lot that can be said on that sphere, and I'm not trying to lead us that way, but I think in hope there's a certain confidence, and then the faith aspect. Faith, I believe the Thomistic formulation is
Thomistic, St. Thomas
yeah,
Aquinas.
yeah. According to his philosophy, I can't remember where in the Summa he talks about it, but it's lending, it's belief in a credible witness, right? So it's not just saying, oh, I think this to be so, but somebody who is credible has told me it to be, and I have not seen it for myself, but I yet accept it on behalf of their testimony. So hope shouldn't, I mean, like, it should be experienced, I think, by us in a certain sense, but also it's kind of mediated, where we're hoping for something that hasn't happened yet, so we haven't experienced it because it hasn't happened yet, right? So we're trusting on some witness that it will, whether that witness is our reason maybe, or the promises of Christ, you know, in the religious context.
Yeah, so I was going to say, it's just based on all the promises that God has made us, that we believe that they're true and that they're going to happen. That isn't maybe for sure.